All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. And thanks for coming. My name's Pam Rowland. I'm the Associate Dean of Technology, and I'm pleased to have all of you here. I am not going to say much. I'm going to turn it right over to our experts here that I want to share with you today. And then Jevin Jackson is going to moderate the session for us as our faculty lead in this particular area. All right. I'll turn it over to you.
This is good. Can you guys hear me? All right, all right. So hello, just by way of introduction, my name is Jamell Mitchell. I work for EY, which some individuals may know as Ernst & Young. I will tell you that Ernst & Young was deemed as an accounting firm many years ago. At this point, we are now looked at as a professional services firm that's pivoting more so within the space of technology. I have been with EY, and I don't want anyone to make any weird faces. 18 and a half years. I started when I was 4. Okay, that's what I was looking for. So I've been with EY for about 18 and a half years. I'm based out of our New York City office, and I've been specifically aligned to what we refer to as our neurodivergent hiring efforts for the past 7 years. I'm going to spend some time today talking about that, what that really means. But before I do so, I do want to give way to my colleague, Emily, so she can introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Emily Paulson, and I work for EY as well. My title is an NCoE manager. So I'm actually local to the Phoenix area, and I work in our Phoenix office. So I'm going to be supporting individuals whom we hire through our program with the day-to-day activities, making sure that they feel that they have the resources and tools they need to be successful. And helping them kind of navigate the projects that they are working on. I have not been a part of the firm for 18 years. I have been with the firm for 2 months. So, but I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for having us.
So this is going to be, I think, an interactive opportunity. So I need for you all to ask questions. This way you don't have to hear me talk for the entire time. If you allow me to talk for the entire time, I am 100% certain that you will miss your next class, because I can go and go and go. If you ask my kids or my wife, she will tell you, or they will tell you the same. I like talking, and unless you tell me to stop, I will continue to move forward. Table of contents. What we're going to cover today is, what does it mean when someone says neurodiversity? It is a term that's being used often, and sometimes it's being used out of context. Our focus from an EY perspective is continue to push out as much positive information around neurodiversity, but then more so neuro-inclusiveness, and then just inclusive hiring as a whole. I'm going to talk about EY's journey. I'm going to talk about the recruiting and support and how we support individuals that may identify or may have received a diagnosis of neurodivergence. There are many different facets that have to cover that level of cognitive difference, and we're going to go into that. We're going to spend some time talking specifically about our Cloud Enablement Center and what does that mean from a local Phoenix perspective. And then lastly, we'll talk about some next steps. Does that sound good? Audible response. All right, all right. I like when people pay attention and they respond appropriately. Next slide, please. So what is neurodiversity? What is that? Does anyone know what that is? Don't look at the board. All right, so let me help you. So how EY defines neurodiversity is a combination of those who would identify as neurodivergent, as well as those that would identify as neurotypical. Neurodiversity, or a neurodiverse world, is really those two components coming together and working together, whether it be on projects that we have from an internal EY perspective or for some of our clients. I'm going to stand up because they try to keep me mobile a little bit. I want to make sure I move around a little bit. Is this thing going to follow me or no? No? All right, so I got to stay right here. All right. Okay, so this is good? All right. As you guys can see as well, I'm a little bit of a joker. You don't have to laugh. I won't pay you for it. But if you do laugh, I might give you something on the way out the door. No? Okay. So I'm sorry. Ha, ha, ha. All right. That's what I was looking for. So again, when we look at individuals that identify with neurodivergence, these are individuals that may have received a diagnosis or identify with ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, individuals that may be on the spectrum, individuals that may identify with Asperger's. That's about 20% of the world's population actually diverge from the typical way of thinking and looking at problems. I identify as a neurotypical person. And the beauty of what we've been able to see from an EY perspective is when you bring individuals that are neurodivergent and you allow them to work and collaborate with those that are neurotypical, the amazing products and solutions that are basically offered to our stakeholders, it's done from a perspective of allowing individuals to be their true, authentic selves within the workplace. The space of neurodiversity continues to be a focal point for many organizations. Part of the reason why is because individuals that have identified as neurodivergent, they come with a very different way of solving problems. They come with a very different way, a unique way of looking at solutions and making recommendations and offering up suggestions that offer a more robust solution to our stakeholders. When I talk about stakeholders, I'm talking about EY's clients, those that actually pay us for different services that we provide. And the services are all around our individuals, our talent. We don't make widgets. We don't actually make anything tangible for any of our clients, but what we do is we offer advice, suggestions, and/or recommendations that they use to make decisions about their businesses. So we look at neurodiversity as a transformational play. What does that mean? There is a race for talent. Everyone that's in this room, I identify as talent. It doesn't matter if you're a junior, senior, sophomore, or even a freshman. You are talent. And you're talent that organizations are looking to have aligned to their organization. Neurodiversity as a transformational play is one that is pushing the envelope as it relates to our culture, how technology is harnessed, and what many of you that's in this room will be able to do as technology. It looks very different than those that are currently within our workforce. Neurodiversity is another key way that organizations are finding increased amounts of retention. Our current retention rate for our individuals that identify as neurodivergent is 92%. That means 92% of the individuals that we hired almost 7 years ago are still with the firm in various capacities. EY's retention for our team members that don't identify with neurodivergence is not at 92%. It's not at 90%. It's not at 85. It's not at 80. What we have found is that the support that we provide for our neurodistinct colleagues, in addition to the education that we provide for those that are neurotypical, it creates environments that people are able to thrive and bring their best self to work. Their best self to work as it relates to products and solutions and recommendations and innovation, so that you're not put in the box if that's not where you're going to thrive. You're not taken out of a box if that's not where you're going to thrive. It's about allowing individuals to be their best self, whatever that may look like, and having knowledge around those that can be supportive. Next slide. Before I start talking about EY's journey, I'm going to pause to see if there's any questions in the room. And before you ask any hard questions, they're all going to Emily. She's new. Any questions?
So what's the industry retention rate for neurodivergence, like the average? Because 92 is a crazy retention rate for anything, but what's the industry standard of the normal retention rate?
That's a great question. I can tell you that I don't know that if there's a standard yet, because there are opportunities for those that identify as neurodivergent that are not being given opportunity just because of their diagnosis or some of the challenges that they face for or from our current recruiting efforts. I can tell you that a standard is that 80 to 85% of those that identify as being on the spectrum or neurodivergent are in jobs that are underneath their skill set or they don't have them.
What does the education look like for somebody that's neurotypical to learn? Because you mentioned there's education for that. What does that look like?
So great question as well. So the education really is vast, right? So there's no specific skill set that you have to have in order to work with someone that's neurodivergent. It really requires you to have a level of patience and empathy. And we're finding that many of our folks that are neurotypical, once we provide them with the tools and the resources for basic inclusive work styles, it has been able to be beneficial for not just those that identify as neurodivergent, but for the team as a whole. I'm going to come to you in 1 second. I can also share with you that many of the individuals that we have that are a part of the firm now, in the last few years, are making decisions to work with EY because of this effort that we have, and they don't identify with being on the spectrum. They don't have any affinity with anyone else that may be on the spectrum or that may identify as neurodivergent. It's about how and or what organizations are we going to align ourselves with that are interested in things outside the bottom line. I can tell you that EY is a $45 billion organization. That's really nice. But I believe that there are people that are coming into the workforce now that are looking for organizations to align with, that are looking just past that number. And what are we doing for society? What are we doing for individuals to be that much more inclusive within our efforts as a whole?
Is there a reason why the retention rate for neurotypical is so much less? Is it like external factors, or is it the lack thereof opportunity for company growth, or is it something else?
That's a great question. What we have found is that for neurotypical team members, they have the ability to do jumps into different industries, different organizations that unfortunately some of our neurodivergent team members or individuals don't have because of the hiring processes, because they are so challenging and everything is set up for a neurotypical world. It's not really set up to embrace those who have levels of difference. But beyond a neurodivergent person, let's talk about individuals that leave college and or university that enter into the workforce. We expect, unfortunately, that people will nod at the right joke. Laugh? Not here? No? Okay. We expect that everyone will be able to make the same types of handshakes or be able to make eye contact or be able to stay on task, or that may not require extra time to process a question that's being asked. Those are some basic expectations that are really out there. What we are doing from an EY perspective is we're challenging that status quo. We're saying, let's look at the hiring practices and let's make sure that those practices are more inclusive to everyone. So if we put supports around, we don't talk about a person's neurodivergence or their diagnosis as much as, what do you need to be successful in this interview? What do you need in order for you to bring your best self to this experience? How can we help? How can we support? Emily, you want to add anything there?
Yeah, I think just in general, from what I'm seeing, and I have a person, like I mentioned, I've been a part of this organization for 2 months, so I have a new lens. But I think one of our biggest focuses on is just a culture of inclusion, right? And so that expands even beyond what we would call our Neurodiversity Center of Excellence, right? We're really out here to help EY as a whole think inclusively so that not only are our practices around interviewing and recruiting, but also holistically, we're hoping that those practices are across. So yeah, there's the lens from zooming in, but also zooming out and what the bigger picture is.
So let's talk about the journey that we have been on for EY. Next slide. We started this journey back in 2016 officially when we launched our center in Philadelphia. And when we launched our center in Philadelphia, we had 4 cohort members, 4 team members that have trained us as much as we've trained them on EY, our process. But they've trained us on, hey, yeah, Jamell, don't say that. That's stupid. I'm like, all right, let's talk about that. I've said, hey, do you guys remember I'm the boss? You can't call the boss stupid. But you can say to the boss, hey, this is not the way that you should consider supporting us. We need this type of support versus that. And one of the things that I have found is that throughout this process, it has worked because I've had the willingness, the ability to not rest on what experience looks like, but to be open to learn different things from individuals who have varying levels of experience. All of our managers and our team members that are helping to support our neurodivergent colleagues, as well as those that are neurotypical that are learning about this, have a willingness to not just rest on what they know, but be open and willing to have conversations and discussions such that your knowledge is being expanded by individuals that are at different ranks with you or different levels of experience. So we started in March of 2016 with 4 cohort team members. We now have close to 400. We now, specifically for this center, are in 19 different locations, many of them globally. We have team members that are aligned to centers in Mumbai, India, in Warsaw, Poland, Madrid, Spain, San Jose, Costa Rica, Manchester, UK and I, as well as 6 different locations in Canada. We just found out this week that they're opening another center in Glasgow, Ireland. Our most recent center within the Americas opened here in Phoenix in September. EY as a whole is a massive organization. These numbers are still smaller, and these are individuals that have specifically come in through this effort, where it is one activity, one effort, one option of coming into the firm. It's not the only way. We have individuals that identify with their neurodivergence that come through campus hires, or our experience hires, or some of them are even referrals. But part of our goal, our focus, is to make sure that we are helping to amplify the work that we're doing, and the work actually has allowed us to pivot from not just neurodiversity, but neuroinclusion and just inclusion as a whole. And we are actively looking for talent that would be willing to align with a dynamic organization like EY. The team focuses on some very specific things. We call them the ABCDs. Automation, artificial intelligence. They focus in on blockchain. They lean in very heavily on crypto, cloud enablement, cybersecurity, and then all things data. Everything within the data sciences, whether it's architecture, whether it's visualization, whether it's cleaning, whether it's mining, all things data, our team members are actually able to add a tremendous amount of value to our stakeholders, both from an internal and external perspective. Question. EY, one of the largest growing parts of the firm is the consulting practice. But EY as a whole is broken into 4 different key areas, consulting being one of them, transaction and strategy being another. I would liken that to your mergers and acquisitions within any other organization. And then the pillars, the go-tos, what I refer to as the bread and butter of EY, which is our tax and our assurance practice. Assurance, another way of saying our audit practice. This was a program that we started, again, back in 2016, and we really were not aware as to how much qualitative and quantitative data we would have to report out on how we're growing and while we're growing. The team has been able to shift and adjust over 2.6 million hours away from different ranks within the firm that was doing said task, either creating automation around it or creating a more effective, efficient process. And on top of the hours that have been able to be reshifted, the firm at this point is it's over $650 million in revenue that the firm has received as a direct result of our neurodivergent, neuro-inclusive hiring. That 650 million plus has been attributed to different products and solutions that our team has built, but also for some media coverage. We've been able to be in Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Fortune, 60 Minutes with Anderson Cooper. The firm has received so much positive feedback and publicity over the work and the efforts that we're continuing to push and showcase not just the value that we've received from a quantitative perspective, but why you should be interested in it, why other organizations should also want to hire individuals, as well as just look at their inclusive hiring practices as a whole. Question?
In terms of, as a consulting firm and having so much success and tangible revenue from these neurodivergent hires, how do you guys work on spreading that to other companies and other big companies and things like that, so that it's just a normal thing, and it's not like, oh, we're the only people doing it. Here's why you should do it. How are you working towards getting it to be a normal thing everywhere?
Great question. And one of the ways that we do that is through opportunities like this to speak to all students about the work, but also to speak to employers about the work that we have done and the value that we have been able to see from this effort and why they should actually do the same. EY has a great deal of brand recognition. And so if other organizations are able to specifically hear not just how we've done it, but what do we perceive as value, they may be more interested in doing the same. And if they don't start a program, because not everyone is going to start a program, they need to continue to look at their hiring efforts so that we have more inclusive hiring efforts and activities for those that are entering into the workplace. So let's say you're not neurodivergent or you don't identify with your neurodistinction. You could be a veteran. You can be a person from a socioeconomic background that looks a little bit different, that may not have had the same types of experiences. And if I don't have those experiences, I'm at a disadvantage with our current recruiting efforts. Being able to have processes that are more inclusive are beneficial for all.
While in college, students have very little exposure to the type of jobs, tasks, projects that actually happen in industry, and they have a distorted view that's reflected only in the small projects or assignment in class. So when somebody goes to a job interview, they don't really know what to ask for. They know that I graduated, and you know you graduated, so you must have passed all your classes. So what is your internal process to first educate prospective employees on opportunities, and then to match those new candidates to opportunities they never knew existed?
That is a perfect question because it tees up this slide 100%. So what we've done is we've actually customized the approach such that the actual individuals that are applying for roles have the opportunity to try out the role in which they're applying for throughout our process. That really comes in a phase 4 of what we refer to as Super Week, which is now a few days, where you are actually able to work on some of the products that you say that you know. You're able to actually perform in the tasks that you say, hey, I'm really interested in Java. Good, we have some Java activities for you. Hey, I'm really interested in VBA. Good, we have a VBA opportunity for you. So you then have the opportunity to see what it is that you say that you took or that you had interest in, and we do some stress testing within that period to see how are you going to perform. What things will you like versus what you may not like? And then we have conversations over, hey, this is what we found to be effective, or hey, this is something we found as a bit of a trend for you throughout this period that we've been able to spend, just to give you more insight into what you might be interested in versus what you took classes around. One of our team members, his name is Andrew, out of our Philadelphia office, and he came up with something. He says all the time, D-Quad. And I said, Andrew, what does D-Quad mean? He goes, D-Quad means degrees don't determine destiny. He's working for a financial services firm. He has a degree in criminal justice. And by no means am I telling anyone to change your major, but I am saying that sometimes you will find yourself in opportunities that may not line perfectly to what your degree is. This is an opportunity for us to be open-minded about where there's passion, where there is interest and aptitude, and allowing that to basically expand. Can you go back 2 slides for me? So on this slide right here, we lean in more about some of the projects that our team members have basically completed for many of our stakeholders. And the examples that are there for you is one aspect, but I wanted to really lean in on the 200 plus technical skills that our team members have. 200 plus technical skills across the team abroad, but not everyone came in with those skills. Your learning doesn't stop when you leave university or college. It continues. An organization like EY, you are continually asked to learn and to grow. And I'm going to pause for a second and ask that you talk about the learning maps that we were talking about yesterday with the CEC team.
Yeah, absolutely. So And one of the things that I was going to mention is, so once we have individuals who are onboarded, they do go through what we call an apprenticeship period. So it's up to 90 days. And this is an opportunity for individuals to go through some training that is not only kind of aligned with the type of work that they'll be doing. So here specifically would be within our Cloud Enablement Center. So some of our individuals did not come with a cloud certification. So we're working with them right now to ensure that they're able to get their cloud certification so that once they're put on projects, they have that skill set. But there's also other opportunities within that. Some of the conversations we're having with the technologists is, what are your interests? Where do you see yourself, or what are areas you haven't necessarily had the opportunity to explore? And they're able to do that as well. And that, benefits the individual from a career standpoint, but it also benefits EY because now we have individuals that have broader technological skills that we can align to projects for the future.
And within this, right, some of the projects that individuals are assigned to, it is really a project-based type role. And again, this particular program is an entry point, one entry point into the firm, but it's an amazing entry point into the program, to the firm, because it allows you to work on different types of projects. So we have individuals that say, hey, I want to work within the audit practice. Great, we'll give you some opportunities to work within an audit practice. And we have found some that went to school for accounting that have passed their CPA that said, I really don't like this that much. I really like cybersecurity better. Great, you have the opportunity to work on cybersecurity. That person has the opportunity to expand her skill set and still bring value to the firm and do something that they're passionate about. It allows you to meet and connect with other individuals throughout the firm and ultimately decide, hey, where do I really want to grow my career? It's like coming in to college as a freshman and not really knowing what I want to do. And the more you start taking classes, the more you start honing in on those areas of interest, you start to say, I think this is really my passion. I really want to delve in deeper here. So this right here is a bit of an example of what the Super Week process looks like. And so there's a couple of things that occur throughout that week or those few days together with our individuals that are really technically sound, that are helping to drive some of this process, that are neurodivergent, who are sitting now in different seats of management and or within senior capacities within the organization. But it allows you to see, how am I going to team? How am I communicating? Because there are some assumptions, again, that we make. Everyone knows how to write the proper emails within corporate structure. Everyone knows how to team effectively and be a contributor on a team as opposed to an individual contributor. There's some stress tests that we naturally layer inside as well. And a couple of things to get to know individuals to see, is this something that I really want to really commit to? Because I believe that when you accept a role, your acceptance of that role is a bit of a marriage, right? We can offer a job, but you have to accept that job. And it has to be the job that you want to do. And we have to be able to have conversations and supports around it to ensure that you are fulfilled within that role and you're being challenged appropriately. So it's a whole ecosystem that is there to support you as a professional. These supports, again, really talks about how are you building trust with the newer team members that are coming into the organization. EY is a massive organization, over 330 people globally. Massive. Coming in without knowing who my friendlies are, who am I reaching out to support. This process, this Super Week process, has been a way that people come in together as a bit of a team. They learn, they grow with each other, and then expand into different spaces within the firm. It's about building trust and what we refer to as psychological safety. How safe do I feel with my manager that's helping me from a day-to-day perspective? How safe and comfortable do I feel with the project manager that's able to tell me, hey, technically that's wrong. Maybe this is something that we need to lean in a little bit more on. This is another training that we want to make sure that we are offered. What are we doing from a support perspective, and how are you growing as an individual? What are we giving you now? But also, what do we see coming down as the pike is concerned? It says, hey, these are requests that's coming in from our clients. This aligns to some of your needs, and this expands and broadens your scope to make you that much more marketable. All of those things are a part of what is behind the support that many of our team members receive once they join. Next slide. So I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about the Cloud Enablement Center specifically. One more. And so this Cloud Enablement Center, it's again really exciting. It's brand new here in Phoenix. The actual floor opens up late December. Yes?
Yes,
Okay.
maybe early January.
Okay. So late December sometimes turns into early January, but they're putting, meaning our firm is putting a lot of emphasis on what does this space look like? How are we able to collaborate with those that are literally delivering support and services to our clients? How are we managing the cloud? How are we ensuring that there is infrastructure within the cloud? How are we and will we align Azure versus AWS? What different tools will be our go-tos, and how will we even use cybersecurity within the cloud in order to ensure that there is limited threats for our clients? How are we looking at threat detection? So all of these things are falling within the cloud space, and it's a great opportunity to have individuals either interested or future graduates to be interested within the opportunities to learn and again grow with EY because they're willing to make that investment. So one of the things that, again, we are talking about is really helping to nurture our people. That nurturing starts from day one. That nurturing doesn't stop when you make a mistake. It doesn't stop when you decide that you may want to do something different within the firm. The nurturing and the development is something that follows you throughout your career at EY. The firm has a tagline that says we're building a better working world. And one of the ways that we build a better working world is not just through our neurodivergent hiring, our neuro-inclusive hiring, but just our inclusive hiring as a whole. How are we paying that forward? How are we sharing information that's going to promote growth within the future of the work world? It talks about forging your career at EY, and you see technology at the center and these multiple spokes that are around. The multiple spokes that are around is something that we refer to as our technology career framework. And each of these roles have a framework that allows EY employees to have very specific information as to what they need to do in order for them to go to the next level. It takes away the smoke and mirrors around how am I performing or what do I need to do in order for me to thrive and increase within my career, whether it be by rank and or title. But it also lets us know what certifications are required. So for each of these spokes, you can double click into them where it says, hey, this is the proficiency level that I need within this particular tool in order to be considered for a potential promotion. This is a newer tool that we have here at EY. And it's a tool that has been beneficial for everyone that is not just part of the Cloud Enablement Center around technology as a whole. Next slide. So next steps. Next steps are we have a link that we have provided that can be shared with everyone that's here today if you have interest both now or even within the future for a potential opportunity at EY. We speak to everyone that wants to have a conversation with us about the opportunities, about what we're doing and the why we're doing it. And maybe EY is not the place for you now, but maybe in a year or so. We have committed and continue to commit that we are going to be on campus. This is not a one and done. We're looking to see how do we create additional relationships and be able to ask questions and have you ask us questions about what things might you need to continue to work on if you're interested within a career at EY within professional services, whether it be cloud enablement or any other center or location that we have. Any questions?
Is there a process to create a partnership in which we establish, let's say, an EI mentor/sponsor center here for several purposes? One would be to work on projects on campus that would groom students and create a pipeline into EY. I talk with companies a lot because I teach the capstone classes. So I say, look, my students have to do a capstone project. They pay tuition. You don't have to pay them, although they would appreciate it, but they would much rather do a meaningful project that's mentored by somebody in the industry than just come up with some esoteric idea just to say they have a capstone. Is there a process? Are you the right people, or who are the right people that we can establish this sort of partnership where students are mentored on campus, maybe they go to internships on-site, remote, so what does it look like?
So yes, there's definitely a process. I would love to talk to you after this because there are some things that I've done in New York that I think really aligns very nicely to what you're asking. It wasn't an internship per se, but it was an opportunity for us to connect with a few colleges and have them work on different projects and have our, I'll say, subject matter resources give advice and or guidance on those projects that they were working on when they were being steered, this is not the direction you should be going in. If your end goal is this, you would want to focus more so within this area. These are industry professionals that have very specific knowledge. So I would love to see if we can do a bit of a pilot to see what that looks like and how many students we can get involved. And we will put you in contact with the actual subject matter resources in that particular field if you have some things already in mind that you would deem as appropriate for that capstone or project that you want more information around. Okay. Question?
You guys have like a typical size for a team on project to project for the technology department?
Great question. I can tell you that teams can be as small as 3 people on a team, as much as 30 or 40 people on a team, depending upon the size and the complexity of the project. There are spaces where one particular team would focus on an aspect of it and they hand it off to another. And then there are others that will follow the project from beginning to close. So it really does depend on the project in of itself and the industry the industry that we would be doing the work for.
I have 2 Zoom questions.
Sure.
What is the interview process like?
So the interview process, again, I would say it's customized because we do offer and allow for individuals that may identify with their neurodistinction to have several steps or phases. First being a qualifying interview. You can answer questions if you want to record those responses, or what you can do is have that conversation over the phone with someone, and then we move into what we refer to as a technical exercise, where now we're actually assessing where you are from a technical perspective. And then the third phase, which would be a review of that technical activity, more information about the role in of itself. And then the fourth and final phase is that super week process where you would be able to tangibly work on different projects and basically perform in the capacity that you would be expected to if you were hired for the role. So the entire process is more so performance-based and it's not based upon behaviors.
Second question is, what does a career progression look like once you start?
Wow, great question. So the career progression, it depends upon what space you come in. So if you come in through our traditional campus hiring, there is expectations that you would go from staff 1 to staff 2. This is for our client servers. If you come through a modified client serving path, you could move up based upon skill set, based upon business need, based upon performance, or you can follow the more corporate structure that allows for progression when there is business need and you're performing at said levels. So it depends upon what space you're coming into the firm in.
I would also like to add, just going back to the first question regarding the interview process, I think something that's unique to EY is that individuals have the opportunity to gain feedback during that process. And so even if you don't get an offer for the job, you're actually getting feedback from EY employees about how you perform during the interview process. And it's things that you can take, tangible information that you can take in and utilize that for future opportunities. So we really want to make sure that there's value in going through that process for individuals so that they can continue to grow and hopefully, if they're, like I mentioned, not able to initially land a job with EY, maybe that would give you the opportunity to land a position elsewhere.
That's a great point, Emily, because what we've heard from individuals that may have gone through a recruiting process, hey, I didn't get the job, but I don't know why I didn't get the job. This is a process where we do provide feedback throughout the week that says, hey, we're noticing this. Hey, it would be helpful if you did a little bit more of that. Or, hey, it would be helpful if you actually condensed your responses or you gave someone else the opportunity to speak, or you're not coming to the sessions timely, or you're leaving the sessions too much and you're missing key information. That is something that our team is committed to do and we have done consistently. Again, it's to really ensure that we're screening people into EY, but it's a way that we're giving back as well to make sure that there is feedback provided. Because oftentimes, if you don't get an opportunity, you don't know why you didn't get the role. You just know, I didn't get the job.
Is it fair to say with your system of hiring and going through Super Week that the role that you were hired for, you might not necessarily be working that role because of how you guys view Super Week?
I think that there are some components to that that would say, hey, I was hired for this, but what they've seen in me is opportunities where, one, I can expand my knowledge, and based upon the business needs, what we did is we just expanded your knowledge base and not said, hey, we hired you to do this role, but we have you doing something totally different. It's more so an expansion as opposed to switching roles, because that's something we can't do. You was hired for a role, you have to do that role. And there's expectations aligned to that role, very consistent with the firm as a whole. And so we do have room for designers as well. There are aspects of both our internal processes as well as some of what our clients would ask for that would leverage different skill sets. A lot of the skills are within the front end, back end, and full stack development. Some, again, the cyber, but we do have space for designers also.
Do the jobs in the projects are also work for EY clients when they start earlier, or are they going through more of a test phase before they go into actual client work? And the second part would be how many team members assigned toward those projects? I know that was a jump on the question earlier.
So to answer the question, individuals have the opportunity to work on projects alongside those that are more senior within the space. We have, again, Emily talked about this apprenticeship model. It's one where you are trained on a tool. You then can apply what you've learned on that tool with the support of a person that's more senior, that's basically working with you to make sure that, hey, if there are gaps or if there's misunderstandings, that person can direct you appropriately. Sometimes that's actually done on client work. Sometimes it's done on internal projects. So it's not as if you have this incubated space where you just remain in, because with the right support, you can also deliver. And going back to the question around the size of the team, it really depends upon the project itself.
So I know you talked about education. Does that include formal education, such as like putting someone through a degree program?
Great question. So yes, I can tell you that the education is really vast. So we have individuals that have master's degrees and bachelor's degrees, and we have PhDs. We have individuals that were former attorneys in the role, but we also have individuals that have associate's degrees, as well as no degrees at all, but they have certifications. One person that comes to mind has a high school diploma, and we were looking for them for a cyber opportunity. And they said, well, I don't have a degree. I said, but you have 7 different cybersecurity certifications. That'll do. We'll work with that.
Is there any sort of like let's say I get into a role and then there was something that I wanted, or you guys might want to promote for or something, like would there be any like will you guys put somebody through a master's program or put somebody through that? Is there any sort of framework for that?
Great question. So we get this question asked a lot. So EY doesn't pay for master's programs per se, but what we will do is we will pay for those classes that are relevant to a role that you're currently in, not a role that you aspire to go into, as long as that actual learning, that training, if you will, is not offered through what we refer to as EY University. So EY has a university as well, where some of the same courses that are offered in different universities would be offered through EY. Not accredited, but. Any other questions? This is great.
Yeah, what's the ratio between like remote workers at EY and on-site workers?
Great question. So right now, I can tell you that most offices, individuals are working remotely. It is something that pre-pandemic, it was challenged. I can tell you at this point, most offices are working in what we refer to as a hybrid. Hybrid meaning you come into the office a couple of days a week, but you actually work remotely. It varies from location to location, wherein yesterday we were in a Phoenix office. They was quite active, but today I'm sure it's going to be less active. In New York, depending upon the day, you may have more people within the physical office, but definitely a hybrid opportunity, particularly for the CEC opportunity. I believe that there are some days that you're going to have to be in the office.
Yeah, the CEC is going to be a hybrid model. And so typically right now we're finding individuals are going into the office 2 days a week. And that's really just to meet with your teams and do some more, that one-on-one conversation and collaboration that can be more meaningful when you're face-to-face versus online.
I have a follow-up question on this topic. So I'll start with one example and then I'll run it. So one of my students, former students, graduated 3 years ago. I spoke with him a few months ago. They just bought a 10-acre property in Idaho and put a satellite internet and works on a bank on Wall Street as a software engineer from Idaho. And builds a giant log home for like $300,000 and enjoys life. So he said there's an increasing trend like that in Idaho, Montana. Developers work in Silicon Valley but live on a ranch. So this is one thing. I am seeing, correct me if I'm wrong, I need to see your perspective that COVID has, among other things, validated the concept of working remote. And what we see now, that essentially everyone is competing against everyone else for all the jobs in the world. Is it a fair assessment? But this is what I'm telling students. I want to know if I'm right in this assessment. So it's no longer, I live in Phoenix, I'm going to apply here. I'm now competing against everyone. It's a, all by all matrix.
I would tell you definitely what you're sharing is spot on. And when I say spot on, I mean it's exactly what we're seeing within the market. The individuals that are now competing for roles, it doesn't matter if you're in the same city or in the same region or the same geo. To your point, COVID has leveled the playing fields such that if I don't need to come into the office, as long as I have the tools that are necessary for me to perform and to do so effectively, we are now quote unquote in competition with individuals that may have been deemed as disabled because I wasn't able to physically come into an office. You may have individuals that you are competing with that could be blind as well, that have the assistive technology in order for them to do the role that is required for that organization. So yeah, it definitely, meaning COVID has leveled the playing field because for many roles, you don't have to physically come into the office in order for you to still to do the job effectively.
2 from Zoom. Does EY pay for certifications? And the second one was, what's the most important thing EY looks for on a resume?
First question, yes, EY does pay for some certifications. And when you say what's the most important thing that EY looks for on a resume, I would say that depends. It depends upon who the interviewer is, because what I'm looking for on an interview, on a resume, someone else may or may not be looking for the same thing. Now, there is some standards that we're looking for, some experience, right? Clearly, maybe less typos, right, on a resume, but there's not one particular thing that EY looks for.
Is there a current need that you all have that you're looking for right now?
Yes.
Okay.
To put it very plainly and blunt, absolutely positively, we are looking for folks for Emily's team.
Yeah, within the CEC, we're looking to fill approximately 15 positions. So we are aggressively recruiting and hiring, but more broadly, as it was talked about, we have several centers throughout the United States that are also hiring for different skill sets and competencies. So.
And I would share, and I'm going to come to you in a second, I will share with you on top of Emily's 15, specifically for the CEC Center, I'm looking for about another 125 on top of that. And that's individuals that have data analytics in the background, any type of tech risk in the background, any finance folks within your background. So the opportunities are pretty broad. Anyone that has experience and interest within the cyber skill set, I'm looking for those individuals as well. So actively seeking at least 125, 150 people, hopefully within the next, 6 months maybe, if not less.
Yeah, would EY ever hire somebody that maybe particularly does not have a certain set of skills in cyber, but has an equal amount of passion in the field as somebody that does have that amount of experience?
Absolutely. We've done it and we have continued to do it because that interest and the aptitude, quite honestly, to learn some of these skills are literally what has made that word cloud that I put up earlier. It looks like a little light bulb that had those 200 plus skills. Individuals that came into the firm, they did not necessarily have all those skills, but we continued to add to them because there was interest and there was aptitude and a willingness to learn.
one of the technologists on my team has a background in history and theater, but then started taking courses when it came to coding, and got really into into that field. So we absolutely, and we, something that that has been vocalized to me throughout my time at EY is we like different perspectives, because different perspectives challenge, the norm.
Sorry, you keep giving me ideas for questions to ask.
Yeah.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but why don't companies like EY get more involved in shaping curriculum so that students that graduate are out the door better fit, so there's less need for industry to spend months on retraining?
So one, that's not a question that puts us on the spot. I can tell you that it is something that EY is doing and has done. We haven't done it with Grand Canyon University yet, but I am personally connected to several universities where we are working to craft curriculum around what does it look like once individuals transition out of university and college and enter into the work field, to your point, so that we're not trying to train and spending effort and time and money on individuals that are coming into an organization that really have no idea as to how to function within that setting itself. So that is something that we're actively doing with a couple of universities that I will not name at the moment, but it is something we're doing. At least 3 of them I'm working with. I'll share with them offline. This is being recorded. Question?
I'll kind of piggyback on that question as well. Is there, you talk about a lot of education processes for incoming employees for UI. Is there anything or any tools or programs that you would recommend for students like us to start practicing in before we get there that are outside of the UI university?
Yeah. Yes, there are a number of them. A lot of them, again, are centered around what our needs are currently. And I say our needs currently because they change. If you were to ask me this question 3 years ago, I would have told you, hey, I'm looking for individuals that are leaning in very heavily into automation and specifically robotics processing automation. And so if you know UiPath and you know Automation Anywhere or you know Blue Prism, those are the things that we're looking for. That was at that time. We have individuals that are certified within those automatable softwares, but we have also now expanded outside of that. So we are looking at those who understand how is cryptocurrency going to impact business? What are we doing from a cybersecurity perspective? How can you layer in from a front end perspective more skill sets if you're not that person that really wants to develop on the back end? So there are lots of coding languages I can share with you when we're done. But we definitely are always looking to see how can we share the information in advance so that when you are getting closer to graduation, you have some of those skills that we're looking for to make you the best viable candidate.
So if a student wants to walk out today, apply for one of the jobs for Emily or yourself, should they name drop and say, hey, referred by Jamell or Emily, is that can get an addition to their resume?
Well, what I'll tell you is that most likely those resumes or those emails are going to come directly to us. So you can, but if you were here, it's going to come straight to us as well. So there's a system that we have where we work directly with our recruiters because Emily and I are not recruiters. Again, Emily is a location manager for our Phoenix office and I'm our global ecosystem leader. We have recruiters that we will work with. We will tell them we were at this session and this is what we covered. Anyone that comes from, as far as a resume with GCU on it, make sure it gets to us, and they will make sure that we have everyone's information. And
could you share a little bit about how you ended up in your roles and your professional background?
Oh, wow.
How much time?
Sure, I can give a quick background. So I'm probably one of the more non-traditional hires for my role, but my background's actually in education. And so I spent the last decade plus working in K-12 and in higher education. My most recent job, I was actually working at the University of California, Berkeley, and I was designing and managing their Neurodiversity Center on campus and also working with professors and faculty around identifying ways to incorporate what we call universal design or accessible teaching practices into their everyday curriculum.
And my background as well is non-traditional. So I have a bachelor's in a combined major of criminal justice and administration planning with a double minor in English and psychology. I have an MBA that had a dual focus on leadership and finance, and I was working towards my doctorate within theological history. So very, very vast background, very different. Again, lots of dots. But I've been with EY for, again, 18 and a half years. Prior to coming to EY, I was working with Deloitte, and I was there for about 5 years. And prior to that, I was working within the legal field. So I wasn't a lawyer, but that's what I was going to focus on. And I have both plaintiffs and defense as a background within that type of law. And that was about 7 years. And no one do the math. No one do the math. Again, I started when I was 4. I'm sticking there.
What are things, if you could generalize, when you were trying to get your first job, like not necessarily specific things because you're in different fields, whatever, what are things that you did to stand out against other people on the resume to land the first job that you got?
So the job that I had versus the job that I wanted required me to take a step back in pay. And I think that is something that is deemed as very taboo. But when you know what you want to do, sometimes you have to make certain sacrifices. And I was working within, I'll just say financial services at that point. But I took a pay cut in order to go into the space in which I wanted to expand my career around. And that pay cut allowed me to really broaden my knowledge from a management perspective and ultimately push me into different management opportunities within each organization I went into after that. So step back in order to take multiple steps forward is what helped me. Emily?
Yeah, I don't know that I could speak specifically to the resume. I think that the pattern I found throughout my career journey is networking. So it's really, you never know who you talk to and where that conversation can take you. So just really be open, stay curious, attend events such as this or any other events, because the more people you meet, the more opportunities that come your way. And honestly, the resume, you're definitely looking at job descriptions and trying to identify those buzzwords and really pull out as much from your college experiences as you can. Because we do look at that. We're not just looking for, do you have experience in a job or internship, but what have you done on campus and how have you made the most of that time? But in general, I would say networking is really what has helped me along.
So we just want to thank you again for your time and for your attention and for your amazing questions. You helped to make this really great so you guys just don't have to hear my voice or Emily's voice today. It was really good for us to be able to connect. We're going to be around. We're going to 10 years class. Yes? Yeah. Okay. So we'll be around for just a little bit if you have a question or so that you want to ask us. And again, everyone that attended this session, we do have a link that we can share with everyone. That if you are interested within the role, you can definitely apply. I will also make sure that you have my personal information as well, meaning my email. So if you have questions, you can also reach out to me as well. And I do answer emails and I do respond to questions. All you have to do is list the date so that I'll remember, okay, this is the date and this is where I was, because I'm leaving to go back to New York later tonight. But this was absolutely fabulous. We do, again, appreciate your time, because you could have been somewhere else, but you decided to give a little bit of it to us. So thank you.
And I'll add as well, I'll share my personal information. So if anyone does have any specific questions about the role in Phoenix, please do reach out to me. Thank you.